In this video we're going to look at creating a 3D scene and doing some 3D editing in ArcGIS Pro. Now, a big driver for the development of ArcGIS Pro was to have the capability to do things in 2D and 3D in our projects, whereas previously in ArcDesktop that capability had been spread across different applications. So now in Pro we can do 2D and 3D in one application. So if we look at this 2D map, we've got a single layer called Buildings. It's got one polygon. If we have a look at the attributes, an additional attribute has been created, and we're going to use this attribute in a minute. It could be called anything. We've called it height, and it's got a numeric value in there. So how would we view things in 3D? Well, we could create a new 3D map, or we can convert this 2D map to 3D from the view ribbon. So either to a global scene, so place it on a globe, or to a local scene, which is what we're going to do here. Now when the 3D map opens, we've now got a 3D layers and 2D layers groups, and we can actually drag layers between those two groups. So the map has opened and our polygon has now disappeared, and that's because it's below the elevation surface. We're now doing things in 3D. So how would we look at this building layer in 3D? Well, we open the properties and we've got an elevation setting here. And if we go to that, we've got a drop down and we've got some options. So the first option is we can view the layer on the ground. So that's on this elevation surface, and we're using the default elevation surface. We could also have a cartographic offset setting near the bottom here, and that's, as the name suggests, just to make it a bit more prominent in relation to the layers around it. Alternatively, we could look at it relative to the ground, so that's relative to this elevation surface, and we could either use an attribute, an expression, or we could base it on the geometry Z values, so that's basing it on the vertices. Or we can have these layers at an absolute height, so regardless of the elevation surface, so that's based on the datum. So think of something like an aeroplane. So let's select that one at an absolute height. Now, which value are we going to base it on? Well, we're going to base it on our height attribute, and then if we just OK that, so if we just go to the full control option down here in the corner, we can actually get the 3D ring, and we can actually look at the map in 3D and rotate it, and we can see our polygon is now displayed at our height. So we're now operating in 3D. So let's go back to that, and let's just put our polygon back on the ground and just give it a cartographic offset. So there it is, it's now back on the ground, so as we can see. So what would we do if we wanted to create a 3D object from this? Well, we could extrude it. So we would need to go to the appearance ribbon at the top, and here there is an extrusion option, and we've got some different options from the drop down. All options will give a flat top except base height, which is based on each individual vertex. So let's select max height for this example. Then we've got to decide what value we're going to base the extrusion on. So we could either enter an expression through the expression builder, or we can select an attribute. So we can select our height attribute, and the object is now extruded based on our height, and we get this building effect. If the data type had been a line and was extruded, we'd get this wall effect, or if it was a point, you'd get a sort of pole effect with extrusion. If we want more options to display our polygon in 3D, we'd need to use a multi-patch feature class or a 3D object feature class. So to do that, we would create a new feature class just in the normal way through the catalog pane. We'd give it a name, and then once we've done that, we've got the data types, and as well as the normal data types, we've got this multi-patch and 3D object feature class. So in this example, we're going to use multi-patch, and then we'll go on to the next window, and we could create attributes, but in this case we're just going to select the defaults. Once that feature class has been created, it is then added to our contents pane, just as you would normally create a feature class. So I'm just going to change the symbology and just make it orange, so just so it's a little bit more prominent before we start editing. So to edit, we would then go to the edit ribbon, go to create as we normally would. If I want to show measurements when we are editing, we make sure the dynamic constraints are turned on from this option down here. And then we can go to create geometry, 3D geometry, and then just using mouse clicks we begin to create our polygon. So then back to the beginning and a final mouse click, and we now have a 2D polygon shape. We can now place the cursor over the polygon and we get a green circle, and when it turns to red, if we hold down the mouse button, we can actually just lift the face and create a 3D object. And in this way we can actually place the cursor over any surface of the object and move it. We can also go on to the edge. We can actually cut an edge. So when we go to the middle of the edge, we'll get a cross, and we place one mouse click on one edge and one other mouse click on the other edge, and now that actually splits the edge into two. And once again we can move those surfaces. In this case we're just going to go on to the green circle and we're going to lift both surfaces. And if we look at that now, we've created a ridge. We can also even cut out a new surface just by placing mouse clicks in a rectangle here, and now we've created another separate surface, and we can lift that surface independently. So in this way it's very easy to create a 3D shape. So having created our 3D shape, we probably want to render that to make it look a bit more realistic. And so we're going to do that. So let's just remove the orange symbology. And now we're going to, if we want to render it, we would go to modify feature, and then we've got this multi-patch texture. And with this we're able to we can load a texture, and we can use image files, and in this case we've got a couple of JPEGs which are images of buildings. So if we take this building front with all these windows, and then we can open that, and then it comes into our modify features, and we can now just place a mouse click on one of the faces and it will place that image there. And if we go back into the modify features pane, we can just use the pan and zoom and rotate and actually scale it to get it right for our building. We can just zoom in and out until it looks right. So we've done one face there. We can also we could use a color, and again we just click on one of the faces and we've just colored that pink. So let's take this roof image, and again we just a mouse click on that face to place that image there, and again now we'll scale it by, I'm just using the mouse wheel to scale it to get it realistic. I'm going to click on the back face to put it there. So again, we're building up this picture. You can see how you can symbolize each face individually to create a realistic looking 3D object. So we need to save our edits from this edit session. Now if we want to look at this project in both 2D and 3D, let's go to the View ribbon, and we can actually move this 3D map and just drag it so that the 2D and 3D maps are alongside each other, so we can view both at the same time. However, both of these maps are independent of each other at the moment, although they do share a layer in common. But we can actually link both views, and we've got this link views option, and we can either link them just by location, or we can do it include scale as well, which is what I've just done. So whichever map I'm in, the other map is synchronized, so they are linked together. So again, this comes back to the point I made at the start of this video, that it's very easy to move between 2D and 3D in your project in ArcGIS Pro. So that's a quick view on creating 3D scenes and some basic 3D editing, and I hope you found that useful.